So here are all the spokes that I've cut. This was originally a piece of 10 by 10 millimeter, which I've planed down to 9 by 9, which is the scale diameter of the spokes, and then I've cut that using just a standard square and saw. Tolerance was around about 1/2 millimeter, so what I've done is I've dressed all of these on my small belt sander, so that now all roughly for 40 millimeters plus or minus 1. And then what I'm going to do is, the first thing is I've made this this piece here, which is designed to fit on my milling machine, and this angle here is 45 degrees. So what I'm intending to do basically is fit this to the machine, insert the spokes. That one's a little bit tight, and then I will mill off the 15 degree angle, reverse it around, and then mill off the other side, and that way I'll make the, if you like, the pointy end of the spokes, and that's what I'm about to do now. So I've got all 24 spokes for the rear wheel ready to go. So here's my my little jig, which I printed using my 3D printer, having designed it in Fusion 360. And here you can see this is the first spoke. The angle's supposed to be 30 degrees here. I've just had that in a device to check that, and it's exactly 30 degrees. So that's good. And as you can see here, I've got a spoke blank already sitting in my little jig, ready to be machined, and I'm just using a standard 6mm metal cutter, which I just had to happen to have lying beside it. I think the other thing I didn't explain, when I made this jig, there's a number of actions I've got to take on the spokes. So I actually made this jig so that this piece in the middle here is removable, and then I can slot another piece in, and that's just making, you know, rather than making a whole host of these pieces, you know, which would be the whole thing. What I'm actually doing is this little piece I can remove, this piece here, and I can stick another piece in. So for example, when I do the 6mm spokes, and these are 9mm, I'll make a little piece to go in there so that I can hold those and machine them. More by look than design, the spokes are actually quite tight in here, so I'm not having to put any further gripping on them. I did think that I might use one of my clamps and grip them, but that's not necessary. So I'm just going to carry on and machine all 24 of the 9mm spokes. So here I am, just about to show you how I make a spoke. So basically I'm going to take the insert, take a spoke, just find out which is the tightest fit. I'll probably go on that way. Push that into there. Give it a tap with a hammer to make sure it's seated properly, and then push that into there. Now I know I've done the measurement, so I've got to basically go down from the 0 point, which is roughly there. I've got to go down 4mm. So do that. So I'll remove smoke. So I take the spoke out of there, stick it in the other way around, pop it back in, and repeat. And there we have the finished spoke. So here's a complete set of spokes for one wheel that have been made. As you can see, it's quite a good fit. Once I get them rearranged properly and clamped, they'll all be glued together. So as you can see here, I've now glued all the spokes together. So that's my first action, and if you look closely, I've drilled the 5mm hole through the centre. I'm planning to use 5mm shafts for the axles. And then the other thing I've also done is I've made the outer hub components, which basically sits on there like that. I've got both of those made. So the next step basically is to fix these onto the hub. I've got to make a back plate so that I can hold it very, very securely while I do a little bit more machining on the spokes, but more of that later. So in addition to this front plate that goes on the outside of the wheel, I've now made a back plate which on the actual car is used to drive through the spokes. And I've made a rear plate which I may or may not use, I'm not sure yet. And you can see here I've had these fitted. I've drilled all the holes. And I've sanded down these, but I still have to cut some material out of here. You can see where that black piece is. That's generally where the material has to be taken out between all of the spokes. So that's one of the next things that I'll be doing for this particular wheel. As ever, here's one I made earlier. So here is a completely assembled wheel. On this particular one, I've left the back plate on for now, but I'm probably going to get rid of that. And I've got the wrong bolts. These are 10BA bolts. They should actually be countersunk bolts rather than hex head, so I'll replace them. And then on the other side, you can see where I've machined some of the material away to give the impact that the original spokes had. And in my next video, I'll show you how I machine that material away, present a little jig that I made to hold this while it's taken away, and some small components that I've made to aid me with turning this down to the correct diameter.